This is the LG Optimus G Pro, and the G might as well stand for gigantic, gargantuan, or anything else to depict that this is quite a large device. To put it in perspective, here it is next to an Apple iPhone 5. You can see it obviously dwarfs the competition. Now, for further reference, here it is next to a Samsung Galaxy Note 2. Both available for AT&T, and you can see that it's actually a little bit slimmer than the Galaxy Note 2. They're about the same height, pretty much identical in those regards, but this is a little slimmer, so it's easier to grasp in one hand, but easier is not exactly the right word because this is still pretty big. The reason that the phone is so big is that this has a 5.5-inch display, and 5.5 inch is obviously very big. The good thing about this is that the display angles are pretty good, and it has a 1080p resolution. So you're getting the full quality display, and it's IPS, so it has a nice balance of color and brightness. The only negative that I have to say about the screen is that unless you're on 100% visibility when you're outdoors, it looks pretty much hard to tell what's going on. But once you have it set to a high capacity, or if you're indoors, this is going to be a beautiful screen. No one's going to look overexposed, the color is going to look nicely balanced, and you're going to get a lot of viewing angles like I mentioned before. Hands down, my favorite thing about the Optimus G Pro is this guy right here. The battery is 3,140 milliamp. It lasts a very long time. I didn't have any issues with battery life when I was using this device. Even when I tried to push it, I actively tried to kill the battery. 8 to 9 hours of frequent use. I was playing audio all the time, listening to music. I was browsing the web, sending tweets, taking photos, all of that, and the battery was still lasting me from the moment I left the house until I came back. The only time it really started to lose power is when I was playing video, and of course video will tend to drop the battery a little faster. So you've got a lot of battery life going on here. In terms of the setup of the phone, you have your micro SIM slot right below the battery. To access that, you'd have to do a little jiggering around, and you have your micro SD slot right here on the right, and the micro SD slot goes up to a very high capacity, so you're gonna have a lot of storage. Internal storage is capped at 32 gigabytes, so you have a lot of potential ways to store your data. Let's do a quick hardware tour of the device. Now, of course, I've mentioned the big 5.5-inch screen. On the front, you have a 2.1 megapixel front-facing camera. On the back, you have a 13 megapixel camera with LED flash on the right and the speaker on the left. Now, the speaker reaches a decent volume. It's not a crazy in terms of quality and volume, but it's solid and respectable. One thing that's not very solid and respectable, you see all these smudges on here? I've been trying to clean them all day, but it is a losing battle because this phone is incredibly smudge prone. It has a really nice diamond pattern on the back that you can't really see now, but you won't really notice the pattern because all you'll see is the smudges. This picks up oil and residue like crazy because the plastic coating on here is not very good, which is kind of disappointing. But in terms of the buttons on here, it has a capacitive glass buttons on the front. So it has back right here, menu here, and the home button is really nice because this little ring that you see around it, when you have notifications, you can set it to light up. So you have like this pulsating blue or green to let you know that you have something going on. When it's red, that's when the phone is charging. So it's really nice in that regard. As far as buttons go, you have the quick memo button right here on the left that allows you to take a screenshot and then do little notes and annotations on it. Volume up and down buttons in the middle of the left, and they're easy to access because you would hold the phone like this if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, you would hold it like this, and it's still easy. So they did very good job on button placement. The power button is the same thing. It's towards the middle on the right-hand side, and you can easily just tap right there to access it. On the bottom, you have a micro USB port. Unfortunately, there's nothing special about it, no MHL or nothing like that. But what is special is the top. Aside from this headphone jack, you also have an IR sensor, so you can use the phone to control your television or cable box. If you had to describe the Optimus G Pro in one word, the adjective you're most likely to go with is big. But I actually wouldn't go with that word. I think it's more fitting to say fast because speed is a recurring theme of this device. In all aspects, whether it's the synthetic benchmarks or just your day-to-day performance, you're going to notice that this thing zips through everything you try to throw at it. Everything you try to load, it goes very fast, and that's because it has a 1.7 gigahertz quad core processor. There's a lot going on here and below the surface and under the surface. On the surface, I should say. You're not going to notice any perceivable lag when you're switching between apps, when you're going from one thing to the next, and you're going to notice that this phone always moves fast. One thing that I notice is that it always feels like it's just itching, waiting for you to tell it what to do. It has 4G LTE, but depending on where you are, it might not be the best. I used to get like 25 megabits here. Right now I'm connected to Wi-Fi, so don't pay attention to the high score. But nowadays I'm only getting like 1 to 3 megabits down, and that's because of my area. It's been very saturated with uh, other LTE users for AT&T, so your performance will vary depending on where you are. But it's still got a lot to offer in terms of processing power, in terms of graphic power, in terms of download speeds. The Optimus G Pro is incredibly fast. Now, before you rush out and go buy the Optimus G Pro, keep in mind that there are a few things that might get on your nerves with the software. There's some love and hate things going on. For instance, I love the quick toggles. They're at the top. They're easy to adjust so I can change the order that they appear. I also like Q-Slide apps. These are basically like mini apps. So when I activate the notepad, I have this little window that I can do to take notes, so in case I'm doing two things at once. But aside from that, I can actually reposition it, which doesn't really work when you have the keyboard there. But I could reposition it. I could resize it if I want, make it go a little wider and make it take up the top screen. And aside from that, I can do the same with my calendar entry, a calculator, and the video. So I can have three things going on at once, and this works with any app. So if I have the calculator on, and then I go into the browser to calculate something, this is going to be a little floating window that I can use to calculate how I'm going to get something done. That typically works nice, and aside from that, if I want, I can go full screen with this in case I want to interact with it, and then rescale it down to size and go back into what I was doing. So unlike multi-window for Samsung, which is limited to like 2 split things for certain apps, this is compatible with pretty much everything. The downside to Q-Slide is that downside of Q-Slide, it's always there. You can't get rid of it. So it takes up half your screen when you consider you're at the quick toggles and the brightness adjuster. So when you're going to look at notifications, you got to look all the way down in the middle. I know it's a small thing, but it gets on your nerves because you're not going to use Q-Slide very often, and it kind of feels like it gets in the way sometimes. I'm also not enamored with the amount of apps that are forced on you. When you see all of these apps, they were all pre-installed except when you get to this page. There are more than 15 apps that might be considered bloatware, otherwise apps that you don't really need, but the carrier and the manufacturer force on you. You've got AT&T Locker, which makes no sense because you can easily get Dropbox or SugarSync and get a much better app. You have AT&T Navigator. Google Maps is way better, obviously. The only things that I really like are AT&T Smart Wi-Fi, which helps you find Wi-Fi hotspots, and you also have My AT&T, which manages your account. Otherwise, you have a lot of apps from Google that are built into Play services, obviously. You've got some apps from LG that help assist with the phone. But then you've got all these carrier apps, and there's a lot to force on you. Now, the good thing is that you have AT&T lets you disable some of these apps. You can't uninstall them, but you can at least remove them from the app drawer so they won't appear anymore. But they're still going to take up space. But fortunately, this is 32 gigabytes of storage, so it's not going to be something that you can't overcome with time. I mostly like the Optimus G Pro software because it doesn't really get in the way. It has some nice animations when you go along the home screen, and obviously you can tailor it to suit your needs. Aside from that, it has some decent software. I'm not too impressed with the music software because I've seen better on other devices, but it does come with Google Play Music, and you might be someone who listens to Rdio or Spotify, so it really doesn't matter. But there are some shortcomings when you're playing with this app. For instance, it has Smart Share, but when you tap on Smart Share to connect to another device, it tends to crash a lot. Pretty much every time I try to use it directly from the media player, it would crash. But when I go into the Smart Share app directly, if I'm on the same Wi-Fi network and there are certain media players or other devices like TV or something that can connect through DLNA, I can beam my music over from one device to the next. There's also a dual recording mode that allows you to record with the front and the rear camera at the same time. Now, this is a little better than the Galaxy S4 because it captures a wider area, so it's easier to get yourself in the frame. But at the same time, when are you really going to use or want this? It's gimmicky, but it's there if you want it. Something you're far more likely to be interested by is time shot, which basically allows you to take a photo right before the shutter button is pressed. So if I'm taking a picture and my thumb is accidentally there, I can tap this button right here to go to time shot, and it has a series of photos. So it can say, hey, right before your thumb was there, this picture might actually work. So I can go back and select this photo, and that will be the photo that's saved. Deciding if you want the Optimus G Pro is kind of hard because there's so much to love about this device, but there's so much to complain about as well. The love side, it's easy. This thing is fast and it's durable. It has an amazing battery life and it's fast. And it has a really beautiful screen that's 5.5 inch and big and it's fast. Yes, I said it's fast multiple times because you really don't appreciate how quickly along this moves until you see this device up close and personal and see how it jumps from one place to the next. Compared to some lag that you may see on other Android devices, you don't experience that at all with the LG Optimus G Pro. The bad side is, as great as this is internally from a hardware perspective, the external portions of it can get in the way. This smudging is very annoying and you're going to be cleaning it a lot, and it just doesn't feel the best to hold because of the coating and the sheer size. You see, I'm struggling just to keep it in the frame of the camera. This is a big device. Now, I've seen some people with small hands use this without issue, but at the same time, this might be a little too much phone for some people. Overall, I'd say that the Optimus G Pro is a great buy just because of the battery life, the speed at which it performs tasks, and LG software. It's not the best out there, but it's coming along, and there are some things to like about it. It has Android 4.1. It has a solid battery life and solid app management and a whole lot of options. There's a lot of preloaded software that's not very great, but it has a fantastic indicator, and you will enjoy this device. This is Andrew from mobileburn.com, getting a lot of notifications. And if you want the Optimus G Pro, I think you'll enjoy it for the most part. Like any phone, there's going to be some things to complain about, but overall, this is one of the best Android phones from a hardware perspective.